Do that again.
I look like I've just been zapped.
You zapped from the energy for the podcast that's about to come up. Boom! Hello, everyone, and welcome to Remind Podcast. My name's David, and I'm joined by the wonderful Ashleigh Moreland. And today, Ash, we're going to be talking about a fairly controversial topic. Unconditional love or a toxic relationship.
Yeah.
Where's the line?
This came off the back of our previous episode last week. So if you missed that, go and check it out. It was all about spiritual bypassing. And the conversation really ended around the difference between acceptance, which is a very powerful, beautiful spiritual concept, versus tolerance. Where do we draw the line between accepting someone and all that they are and loving someone without condition, but also having boundaries around what we will or won't tolerate?
Oh, it's big. Because going back to last week when we're talking about, spiritual bypassing implies there's a sense of wanting to be spiritual and certain things that you want to have or be or aspire to be. And so you're basically looking at it from when you aspire to be, you don't want to be triggered. You don't want to be, you need to be at peace with everything. You need to have the inner peace. And if you're dealing with people around you that are disturbing that, how does one act in a spiritual way? Is it just coming from a place of complete acceptance and understanding and knowing that everything is perfect as it is? Or is it setting a healthy boundary, walking away, or giving them some constructive feedback as to why? And so
This is going to get so big.
And so I generally sort of feel that if it bothers you, you got to do something about it. And, what does, and I'm going to say at the top of the show, unconditional love in this reality is not achievable. Now, that might sound controversial, right?
Ooh.
And there could be the future David rewatching this, shaking his head, because there's clearly something that I've missed. Or the future David could be high-fiving because they're like, yep, you've got it. But that's the way I believe it right now in my experience, because the mere fact that we use the word unconditional, we actually have to create the condition first to un it. Because there's no such thing as unbreathing. You just breathe, right?
Yeah.
So the fact that we have to have this label of conditional and unconditional, in this reality, we have conditions everywhere. That's part of duality. There is a black and a white and a light and a dark and a up and a down and a left. Like, there is all of it everywhere. Now, when I say it's unachievable in the fact that you can simply not experience anything with anyone at any point, because that would be unconditional love. Everything is exactly where it needs to be as it is right now. You simply don't experience at all in unconditional love. You simply just experience love. Now, in this reality, is that what we're here to do?
Wow. So this is so interesting to me because I went on this huge, just dragged through the mud journey. The first thing when I opened up a Bible like several years ago for the first time since I was like 12, I was so challenged because I was triggered by my neighbors, and I opened it up to the bit where it said, love your neighbors as you love yourself. And my neighbors at the time were keeping us up till like 3 o'clock in the morning and just having gatherings right out the front of my bedroom window and all this kind of stuff. And then 2 weeks later, another neighbor tried to break into my house, and I was like, oh my gosh, how am I supposed to love these people? And in what I hear what you're saying around the unconditional. By default, if there's unconditioned, there has to be condition, because that's the nature of language and duality. But the interesting thing about this is if we focus more on the word love instead of the word unconditional, to me, what that whole experience taught me, because it really peeled back, like it really made me look at what does love mean to me? What is love? And is love, should I be inviting them in for dinner? Should I be keeping the peace? Should I be not rattling the boat? Should I be giving them a Christmas card? You know, what is love? But the crazy thing about it was what I've learned since then is that love is about the posture of my heart. And so when someone could be doing the most heinous act, and my husband at the time was a prison officer and he was working in maximum security prisons, and some of the people that he was dealing with had done some of the most unthinkable, hardcore, brutal acts against other people. And I was challenged by that, by going, okay, well, maybe I can learn to have a heart posture of love towards my neighbor who's keeping me up till 3 o'clock in the morning. But how can I have a heart posture of love towards someone who has done that, or who has said that, or who has insert criteria here? So it was a huge, like, again, working on my inner self, my heart, the posture of my heart in response to context, circumstances, conditions even. So I think that unconditional love can be really misrepresented and misunderstood based upon the lens that we're looking at it through, in what we think unconditional means and what we think love means. So how we're defining
I would
those
say
terms.
if someone had to define what does unconditional love mean, in my mind, it's acceptance, and it is complete. It's complete acceptance of what the event is happening, what the person is doing, or whatever it is, right? It's just complete acceptance. And because when you have that acceptance, you don't feel bad about it. Because when we love or have feelings or we want to do nice things, it's normally from a posture of feeling good. Now, when someone brings a something which makes us feel bad, when we're feeling bad, how can we feel good at the same time?
Yeah.
And so if I accept that bad thing is actually not bad, you cannot interrupt me feeling good.
Yes, exactly.
At a
It's the judgment
Absolutely.
of what is good or bad that is disrupting our peace, not the thing that's happening in the first place.
And you take it one step further, or on another little tangent, we talk about trust. What is a definition of trust? And to me, before I heard this particular saying, trust to me was being able to know in any certain situation, I could predict someone's behavior.
Ooh.
That's trust. So if I say to you, Ash, or, Ash does something and I trust her to do a specific thing in a certain situation.
Yeah.
Because I can trust it. I'm actually controlling it.
Yeah.
But when Guru said trust is actually knowing that whatever someone does in any situation is just perfect. That is trust.
Yeah. That's also known as faith.
Yep. And so it's sort of like when we look at all these things, it's like our interpretation of what is unconditional love. Well, it's an aspiration. It's something that's sort of like, I want to be able to be feeling good around you and bringing that good positive vibe regardless of what's going on. I don't want to be in a triggered state. So then we place this into relationships. Okay, now, do I accept this? Well, acceptance is very different to tolerating. You can tolerate anything. You can tolerate your neighbours when they're trying to break into your house. You can tolerate your neighbours when they're banging out music outside your window at 3 a.m. in the morning. You can tolerate them starting the lawnmower nice and early on a Sunday morning. You can tolerate anything. That just takes willpower. Acceptance is actually when you do not feel the need to actually change it. And for me, when you come from that, and trust me, like, find someone who can, especially when you throw anything at anyone, especially at a certain level, they're going to feel something. Acceptance can turn to tolerance pretty quick. But when you come from a place of acceptance, you don't need to change it. You're okay with it, and it doesn't impact you in any way, shape, or form.
I find that so interesting because we're coming from different angles here. I love it. This is going to be fun.
Because what I'm doing is I'm building up to how this feels in a relationship.
Yeah. So in the example of the neighbor, I see acceptance and tolerance as being really different. So acceptance is accepting that they did what they did. This is for me, from my perspective. Acceptance is that I can accept that they did what they did and not seek justice for me and not, have what I would call a hardened heart towards them. But I don't have to tolerate that they did what they did because they disrespected boundaries. And therefore, of course, I reported it to the police. And of course, I gladly handed over the video footage and the, the license plate and everything, all the other evidence that I had. So there's an acceptance that what happened, but there's not tolerance by the passivity of just going, oh, well, it happened, too bad, I won't do anything about it. So it's similar in relationship, right? Like, I can accept a flaw of a partner. I can accept that they might have made a mistake. I can accept that they might have screwed up in this one particular way or whatever. But I don't have to tolerate that going forward. And so if I were to tolerate going forward, then it actually disempowers and doesn't promote growth or change or anything else.
Bingo. And I'll stick with my version of acceptance because you're right. If you had to go through the layers of what am I doing, the first thing is something that is intolerable. The next thing is tolerance. The next thing is acceptance. And, above that is unconditional love. And so for me, when it, say, comes to your neighbours, you can tolerate it, but you can still do something about it, right? It's sort of like, it doesn't mean that if you tolerate something, you're doing it as a choice. I choose to do something, I'm tolerating it, but tolerance doesn't mean zero action. Acceptance means zero action.
See, we're defining the words differently.
Well, for me, it comes from a feeling. So for me, and we won't need to harp on it too much more, but acceptance and true acceptance is simply, it is what it is. The que sera, sera. That to me is the essence of acceptance. Because if acceptance is I will put up with it or I understand they do it, what's above acceptance? How do you get to a point where that can happen and that was fine?
I think
from a sense of feeling within you, not a forced, I shouldn't need to do anything about it.
Yeah, and I think that comes down to empowerment and choice, right? So I see acceptance as, if this is a timeline, if you imagine a horizontal line that's a timeline and I'm right here in the middle, acceptance is of what is. And what is now is the culmination of everything that was up until this point. But the future hasn't happened yet. So tolerance to me is about the future. If I tolerate something, then the timeline in my future is going to continue on the things that I've accepted from the past. But I can accept what is through accepting what was from the timeline in the past because I can't change it. But I sure as heck can change the timeline in the future through what I do or don't tolerate. And so when I bring that into relationships, that might be a perfect example is, let's say there's been infidelity in a relationship. We might reach a level of acceptance where we're no longer feeling resentment, we're not feeling the hurt anymore, we've forgiven, those kinds of things. So there's been acceptance, but that's in the timeline that was.
Mm-hmm.
But would we tolerate being cheated on again? That's the time. The future hasn't happened yet, so that's sort of in advance.
And this is where we're and I guess we're walking down the line of semantics. What do these different things mean?
Yeah, but see how important that is. Because even someone could read the title of this and they're going to overlay their own perceptions around what these words even mean. And that's exactly what we're getting at with unconditional love. Because
healthy boundaries and unconditional love and acceptance doesn't mean you're giving up something of yourself.
Yeah.
And so acceptance, true acceptance, is a vibrational match to what's going on. You are at peace with what's going on. And so that's where, and if you're not, then something needs to change. Mm-hmm. So you can either tolerate it, which means that you're not feeling great about it, but you're not going to do whatever it is. It doesn't mean you do nothing. So in the instance when it comes to setting boundaries, when it comes to a relationship, you know, we could look at certain personality traits in a person and you could look at it and love it. I could look at it and go, oh, I don't know how you tolerate it.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's kind of it's a match. So now we're coming down to personality. But it's really coming down to, if you're feeling within inside you something is not right, are you tolerating it? Are you doing something about it? Or is there something that you need to accept? Because I've even heard the saying, and I could even be quoting the Bible out of it. I've got no idea. So correct me if I'm wrong. Give me the strength to deal with the things that I can deal with. Yeah. And what was the end of that one?
And give me the strength to change the things that need to be changed. I don't even know and the wisdom to know the difference, or whatever it is.
Yeah, or and to be able to accept the things.
Yes. The courage to accept the things that I can't, and the wisdom to know the difference.
And so to me, and I may have just quoted your book, that it's, for me, acceptance is that inner peace with a situation. It doesn't mean you have to tolerate
continue to choose it. You don't have to continue to choose it.
Exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly.
So, and this is what I'm saying. The future hasn't happened yet. And so if the future hasn't happened yet, we can have acceptance of what was and experience peace without fighting against that injustice or that unfairness or hurt or whatever it was, and still choose differently, because the timeline hasn't happened yet. The future hasn't happened yet. And I think that's one of the most important points, right? Because
absolutely.
If we don't set boundaries and we don't make decisions, in order to have unconditional love for someone else, we need to abandon ourselves, and it comes at the expense of loving us. So if unconditional love was real, and if I was truly worthy of being loved, of being respected, of being honored, and I tolerate that independent of acceptance, well, then I'm abandoning myself and the love that I'm worthy of in order to have that love.
It's not unconditional, because it's conditional upon yourself.
Well, to an extent, I think there's still we fall under the banner of unconditional love, right? We have to fall into that. We're still worthy of that. Exactly
right. So you can't just sort of say I love them unconditionally, yet I allow them to make me feel this way. Because you're not
so why does love
yourself.
have to mean being with them though? Because it doesn't. I can still have I have a heart posture of love towards my ex-husband. Absolutely do not want to be in a relationship with my ex-husband.
Yep.
But having acceptance of what was and acceptance of what is, and also through unconditional love for self, choosing to not continue on that path, but also having a heart posture of love towards him. It doesn't mean to say we have to stay together. And I'm not placing condition on the heart posture of love towards him. I'm just saying that through honoring myself, I needed to make choices and changes that allowed for that.
Yeah. And I agree with all of that. And so let's bring it back to, the title of it. Is it unconditional love or a toxic relationship?
Ooh.
And it's really, well, again, someone's definition of unconditional love could be, well, I might tolerate or accept certain behaviors.
Yeah.
And that by itself is not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Because I've noticed through my own healing journey, the things that I was never capable of accepting in the past in anyone, I can now accept.
Yeah.
And it's not, and I'm not just tolerating it anymore. Because again, for me, tolerating it is sort of like, I will put up with it with not having to say something about it.
Yes.
Or
so is there healthy boundaries or not? So let's do a side-by-side comparison of like, if that is what we're talking about, is it unconditional love or is it a toxic relationship? Let's do a bit of a side-by-side comparison, right?
Or toxic behavior.
Yeah. So is acceptance, okay? So respect and acceptance absolutely can come under unconditional love. Disrespect and control would be toxic relationship. Tolerance, emotional abuse, violation of boundaries,
Giving up of yourself.
Yeah, giving up of yourself.
Sacrificing
regressing.
yourself.
Absolutely. Yeah. Imbalance of power, having unresolved conflicts. If there is anywhere where you have to compromise your own growth, well, then that's not unconditional love because you're suppressing yourself.
Well, I guess what we're sort of saying is if you have the idea and a stereotypical definition of unconditional love, which means that you will love something unconditionally external to you at a sacrifice of yourself, that is a very common understanding of unconditional love.
And staying with them because of the unconditional love.
Yeah. What we're sort of saying is unconditional love includes you. So anything that doesn't feel like it's resonating with you, it's either a trauma that's needed to come out that will lead you to acceptance, or it's actually saying this is actually not for you. Because what you're actually dealing with is behaviours that are not aligned with where you need to be, or the behaviours are someone else acting out because they're not aligned to where they need to be. And so if you sit there and say, I just love this person unconditionally and I'm sacrificing myself, then you need to remove the words, I love this person unconditionally. Because, well, actually, you can love someone unconditionally, but you're not coming from unconditional love because you are not bringing it back to yourself.
And so, what are you tolerating that is actually at the expense of you?
And why?
Yeah, and why? Absolutely. I think that's a really, really, really powerful question. I knew this was going to be a really big one. A really big one. Look, I think that this conversation it's sharp, it's to the point, it's probably pretty brief because I don't think, apart from understanding acceptance versus tolerance and having that side-by-side comparison between, well, what are some telltale signs of a healthy relationship where there is unconditional love where there's space for mistakes, there's space for error, there's space for imperfection and flaw, but there's a commitment and a partnership towards growth and towards healing and towards being better
and to me a healthy relationship, and what I'm aspiring to get into, is one where it's not devoid of tolerance. Like there will be tolerance in it because there's not going to be a point in time where it's just perfect harmony all the time. But there's going to be a lot more acceptance. It doesn't mean I have to necessarily agree and be and mimic those behaviors, but that acceptance of it just is. And if that continues, that's also okay because I'm accepting of that. Yes, there's going to be some tolerance, and I also believe there's going to be in the reverse because, newsflash, I'm not perfect. I know it's hard for some of you to understand.
Absolutely.
And I think from that, and this is where I sort of look at, how do I know I'm accepting something versus tolerating something? It's the feeling inside you. And that's why it's so important to me, because I know that if I can accept something and it resonates and it's actually not something that I necessarily fully agree with, that to me is acceptance without having to agree. Like I'm not getting rid of my sovereignty when it comes to that kind of behavior or understanding or theory or thought stream.
Totally. And I love that word sovereignty and differentiation, right? So there's this concept of codependence and enmeshment, where the enmeshment is based on a whole heap of almost unwritten ground rules, and they are the condition for a heart posture of love. And COVID really brought this out, right? Really brought this out in people, where there was hostility and a heart posture of hate and division and hurt and pain, where people were really nasty towards each other based upon which side of the fence they sat, based upon whether or not they wore a mask, based upon whether or not they got vaxxed. Yeah. And that was really divisive. And I think that we can have, like, for example, you can have unconditional love. You can have a heart posture of love towards someone who had a different viewpoint to you, who had a different perspective politically, who had some other difference. You can have a heart posture of love towards them and still uphold your own boundary, because that's what you believe in. And that's, I guess, the difference between, again, that acceptance versus tolerance.
Are you saying you're coming around to my way of thinking here, Ash?
No, I think I'm still sticking on the same path, but maybe we're realising that we're saying the same thing, hey?
I love it. But yeah. I think at the end of the day, if we had to sum up this episode, you know, is it unconditional love or a toxic relationship? It's really coming down to how much are you giving of yourself in this whole equation?
Yeah.
Because if it's basically, if you're not leaving a lot for you, then it is a toxic relationship. Now, does that mean that person's toxic? It may do, or it may not, because it also could be the fact that you are projecting that into the relationship and allowing it to happen because of your projections.
Yeah.
But don't give yourself the authority to love someone else unconditionally if you do not do it for yourself first.
Yeah, that's such a big point. And I think also as well, when we're saying this term of toxic relationship, a lot of people jump to, oh, well, I have to break up with them. I have to leave them. We have to end our relationship. Nope, not the case.
You need to make a change.
You need to change. And this is where, again, the timeline thing becomes so handy, because the future hasn't happened yet. But if you accept and tolerate, the path that you're on in the future is going to continue. The same path is the trajectory that you're on will just push further and further and further and further into that future timeline. But you can accept and be conscious in what you tolerate. And by bringing consciousness to what you tolerate might look like change in your relationship. It might look like, hey, I know this has been okay and I've tolerated this for all this time, but through my own growth and through my own bringing of unconditional love to myself and honoring that, this is what this is going to look like if we are going to move forward, and setting that healthy boundary. And
100%.
Guess what that does? It completely quantum shifts the trajectory that you're on. It completely changes that trajectory of the future. And so you project that out 3 months down the track. The relationship that you have 3 months down the track on that timeline with that change is a completely different relationship to the relationship that if you continued in the acceptance and tolerance, you would have in the same 3-month period. So if you want to see change in your life, if you want to see change in your relationship, in your workplace, wherever you are, you need to be willing to decide what you can accept and what you can tolerate, and bring consciousness and intention to it so that you can make that quantum leap.
And if you're trying to decide what to accept and what to tolerate, how do you feel about it? Because that's a good guide.
Yeah.
As to
come back to your values.
You don't have to accept and tolerate everything just because. Or if you are tolerating something, because in my mind, acceptance requires no effort, zero effort. It just happens. And so that's why I put a big emphasis in the difference. So acceptance really doesn't become an issue. What are you prepared to tolerate? And then just ask yourself why.
Yeah.
And then from there, build on from there. And if it's coming from a posture of yourself not allowing you to, or bringing yourself down to placate someone else, or I'll say that properly, placate a situation, then it's coming from a trigger or a trauma.
The
or
antithesis to unconditional love. Fear.
Antithesis, that's
Fear
a big word.
Fear of rejection, fear of being alone, fear of not being lovable by anyone else, fear of.
Yeah.
If you are tolerating out of fear, then you are not in love.
I like that one.
Mic
Boom.
drop. Mic drop.
Yeah,
Guys,
don't drop.
This
drop
has...
You and Mike's have a bad thing already.
Yeah, if you don't know what we're talking about, go a few episodes back and watch the intro because it was a whole ordeal. But guys, this has been pretty confronting. If you are listening or watching, really grab a pen and paper and sit down and answer those questions. Really be willing to look at your own life. If you're here for the transformation, if you're here because you want to experience that transformation in your life, you need to be willing to answer these questions for yourself. So go back, rewind, look at the questions we asked. What is it that you're tolerating? And as Dave mentioned, more importantly, why? And if it is coming from that basis of fear, then it's not coming from love and it's not serving you.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Well, we'll keep this a short one. The last couple of weeks have been actually quite long, but...
Yeah, short and punchy to the point today.
Absolutely. It's been amazing, Ash. It's been a great one. We will catch you next week. Bye-bye, everyone.
Yes, you will. Bye.